I were king of the forest, not queen, not duke, not prince. My regal robes of the forest would be satin, not cotton, not chintz. I'd command each thing, be it fish or fowl, with a roof and a royal growl. As I click my heel, every tree would kneel, and the mountains bow, and the bulls kowtow, and a sparrow would take wing. If I were king, each rabbit would show respect to me. The chipmunks genuflect to me. My tail would lash, but I'd show compassion to every underling. If I were king, just a king.
Your Majesty, if you were king, you wouldn't be afraid of anything?
Not nobody, not no how.
Not even a rhinoceros?
Impossible.
How about a hippopotamus?
I'd thrash him from top to bottom.
What about an elephant?
I'd wrap him up in cellophane.
What about a rhinoceros?
Impossible. I'd show him who's king of the forests.
How?
How? Courage. Let's all say it. Courage. What makes a king out of a slave? Courage. What makes the flag on the mast to wave? Courage. What makes an elephant charge his tusk through the misty mist and the dusky dusk? What makes a muskrat guard his musk? Courage. What makes the Sphinx the seventh wonder? What makes the dawn come up like thunder? Courage. What makes the Hottentot so hot? What puts the ape in apricot? What do they got that I ain't got?
Courage!
You can say that again.
My question for you this morning is, what are you afraid of? What scares you? Probably not lions and tigers and bears. Even though on the news this week I heard about did you hear about this mountain lion or a large wild cat? Yeah, that was roaming in Bixby. Who knew? So maybe. And on my drive in this morning, they were talking again about how many earthquakes are happening every day in Oklahoma, even though there are no fault lines under the state of Oklahoma. What are you afraid of? Some of us are living with cancer. Others have children dealing with addictions. Some of us are inching closer to our parents' death. A few of you here this morning are graduating from high school and beginning a new stage of your life, leaving home for the first time. We all know what fear feels like. It's uncomfortable in our bodies. Our heart rate goes up, our blood pressure does too. We start to breathe more quickly, our mouths get dry, our muscles tense up. This, what I'm doing right now, used to scare me, but it doesn't so much anymore. You may be afraid of snakes or spiders or the dark or of heights. Fear is useful to a point. It can save lives. For example, if the fire alarm, let's just say if the fire alarm went off right now and we started to evacuate the building, our bodies would probably respond with some of those physiological responses I just described, and our minds would start racing too, thinking things like, which way should I go? What about the children? What about the elderly people? Are there people upstairs? I wonder if they have a sprinkler system. Oh my gosh. What about the babies? I wonder if they have a plan. Our minds speed up as the blood actually runs away from our minds to our extremities so that we can respond to the danger, so that we can fight or flee. We don't really think well, though. We don't think clearly when we're in a panic. Sometimes we even freeze. The longer the stress or the fear lasts, the less clearly we can think or reason. Of course, in the movie, Dorothy runs away. She flees when Miss Gulch threatens to take Toto away and kill him. That happens really near the beginning of the movie. So I just want to ask, with our graduating seniors here with us, how many times have you thought about or actually run away from something? Raise your hand. Either actually did it or thought about doing it. I want you guys to turn around and look and see. Now be honest. Oh, there we go. Be really honest. More hands keep popping up. So it is a really human response to stress or pressure or fear to want to run away from things like a bad mistake, when we've made a really bad mistake, when we've gotten some really bad news, when we've had a poor performance on stage, at work, in class, any kind, sports, when we've had a painful heartbreak, a painful breakup, or when there's a disappointing election cycle going on. All that talk of moving to Canada. But the fact is, this is our home. The good, the bad, and the ugly make up our lives. And so we must and we do live with disappointment and uncertainty, with risk, with anxiety, with expectations, with failure, and with fear. Fear, which is the opposite of love. Because fear, not hate, is the opposite of love. Hate is actually part and parcel of passion and love. We can love and hate the same person at the same time because people who are close to us matter that much. But fear forces love into hiding. There's this beautiful passage in 1 John chapter 4, and says, there is no fear in love, he says. Fear, in my head anyway, sometimes sounds like this, maybe in yours too. I'm not good enough. They won't love me back. I've made too many mistakes. It disconnects me from other people. It breaks down trust with the people around us who love us. It breaks down trust even with ourselves. So I'm asking you this morning not just to consider what you're afraid of or what scares you, but to remember for a moment the first time you remember being really brave. When was the first time you remember being really brave? We all want to be brave. I remember breaking my arm when I was 5 years old. I fell off the jungle gym that we had in our basement onto a hard cement floor while my mother was busy preparing dinner for guests we were having that night. So I told her I'd hurt myself, and she told me to go lay down on a couch, and I waited bravely for her to come and see me, and when she didn't come for quite some time, or felt like a long time to me, I walked back into the kitchen holding my arm, and just one look at me and she knew she had to take me to the hospital. And actually, I remember, this was really brave, actually, I remember when the doctors had to use a circular saw, you guys are lucky, to saw off the hard cast I had been wearing for 6 weeks, so they actually sawed into this thing that was just covering my arm. I felt very brave. I don't think I even cried. When author Stephanie Dowrick asked the same question, she wrote a beautiful book called Forgiveness and Other Acts of Love. She asked people, what's your first memory ever of being brave? People had all kinds of answers. Some said school, definitely the first day of school. Remember that? Having my tonsils out, going to the hospital and feeling like I was completely by myself. Someone else said when I was 10, I learned to swim. That was really, really brave. Another one said, I'm waking up in a dark room. I must have been less than 2 years old. It was cold and dark. Or is that my first memory of being afraid? One person said, can I tell you about my most recent memory instead? I was able to stay with my mother through her several weeks of agonizing dying. That really took me into a new realm of braveness. We all want to be brave, but we know deep down what it takes. Facing our fears rather than running away means we'll have to tell each other and ourselves the truth. It means we'll risk losing, sometimes seemingly everything we care about. It means we may make a fool of ourselves. We may even fail in front of everyone. They're big risks to take. But of course, courage isn't fearlessness. As we said, it's taking action in the face of fear. All this thinking about bravery and courage and fear made me think about my friends Deb and Caleb. Caleb is another recent high school graduate. They're friends of mine from Maine. Deb is Caleb's mom, and Caleb was born with Down syndrome. I've known Caleb since before he was born. He was in a hurry to get here, I guess, because I remember the phone call from Deb when she was in the hospital and they were trying to stop her from going into early labor. Deb was a young mom, so there was no reason to suspect any genetic anomalies. They stopped the labor, and Deb went on to carry Caleb to term. When she heard and saw for the first time that Caleb had Down syndrome, she was afraid. She was afraid for his future. She was afraid for her own future, and she was afraid for her whole family's future, really. And of course, when you have a child with developmental disabilities, everyone in the world has an opinion about what's possible and what's not, and pretty much everyone feels entitled to tell you their opinion about what's possible and what's not. It's pretty much the same thing with pregnancy in general, for those of you who've been pregnant. It's true with alcoholism, depression, divorce, unemployment. Everyone else suddenly becomes the expert. I remember the years when Deb was advocating for Caleb in the public schools and the work to mainstream him in activities where he would be most successful. I do remember the experts telling Deb and her husband Chuck that they should not expect Caleb to function as an independent adult ever, and that they should start planning their finances so they could support him even after their deaths. What's so amazing is that this year, Caleb just graduated from his first year at Strive University in Portland, Maine. Yes, wow. He lives in a dorm. He walks or takes public transportation to his job. He has a steady girlfriend who also has Down syndrome. They've been boyfriend and girlfriend for the past 4 years or so. One day this winter, he did get lost on the way to work. He was late for the bus, and he knew if he waited for the bus to come, the next bus to come, that he'd be late for work. And so he started walking through the streets of Portland. And Portland is a pretty big city. It's probably a little smaller than Tulsa, but more of a downtown area and more happening in the downtown area. We know that being lost is scary, if you've ever been lost. When Caleb realized he was lost, and this is actually in New England in the winter, so he was cold and lost, he started knocking on doors. Which could be a little dangerous. Nobody answered for a long, long time, and then finally somebody did open their door and invite him in, and luckily it was a kind person who asked him what was going on, and he explained that he was trying to get to his job and where he went to school, and she called Strive University, and they got Deb and everybody. It all turned out okay. And everyone could have decided at that point to give up, right? To just bring him home, to say it's too much, it's too risky, we can't do this. But they didn't. He'll start school again in the fall. And the hardest thing right now for Caleb is that his girlfriend's parents are keeping her at home and aren't imagining that she can ever become independent. They're not looking at places like Strive University for him to attend. They're not encouraging her in those ways. And so Caleb is actually having to face his fear that the possibility that she won't be able to live with him and marry him as he sets up his own life and his own place in the world. It's a great fear, a greater fear than the one he faced when he was lost, and still it isn't stopping him. He seems to know that his biggest responsibility is to become the best Caleb he can be, no matter how much it breaks his heart, and no matter how risky it is. The fact that Caleb can face those fears fills me with so much hope, and hope does encourage courage and confidence. So I want you to remember for a minute the Cowardly Lion and the Scarecrow and the Tin Man. You remember that the quality or virtue that they thought they lacked was actually the quality or virtue that they most consistently displayed, right? The Scarecrow thought he was dumb, but he's actually the smartest one as they're facing all those dangers. The Tin Man thought he didn't have a heart, but he's actually the most sensitive one all the way through this story. And the lion thought he was a coward, but he's actually the one who intervenes time and time again to save people. So how did they discover what their greatest gifts were, even when they had so much doubt? Two things needed to happen. First, when the wizard, who was really only a man, we know, gave the lion his badge and gave the scarecrow his diploma and gave the lion that ticking clock to symbolize a heart, he just affirmed something that they had already experienced on their journey to Oz. And we all need people who we respect to see us clearly and to name and to recognize us and to lift us up, because those moments strengthen us and they prepare us for the next challenges we're going to face. So this congregation is important because we can see each other and we can see things in each other that we can't see for ourselves. But they also had to experience and realize their own innate God-given gifts on their risky, scary, what does she call the woods? Creepy journey, dark, scary, before they receive that formal recognition. And the word recognition is revealing, actually, because to recognize means to be seen again, recog, to be seen for what we already are. They had the gift within them, but they had to discover for themselves that they were brave and smart and strong by daring to follow that yellow brick road, by daring to dream, by asking each other for help and then accepting the help, by risking failure, abject failure. Remember the wizard, the first time they see the wizard sends them away and says they have to come back with the broomstick of the wicked witch of the east or the west. I always forget which one, which is an impossible task. But still they go. We discover who we are by daring to believe in ourselves and by asking the people around us why they believe in us. Even Dorothy had what she needed with her the whole time. What if it's true for you too? What if you are so used to being you that you're like a fish swimming in water and you don't know how great a swimmer you are? What if you can't see your greatest gift or your greatest power because it comes so naturally to you? What if the thing you think you lack and you long for is actually the thing that you're full of and is your greatest power? It matters to pay attention today, because if you don't see it and if you can't claim it, you can't offer it to the world freely and generously. And the world needs our gifts to be shared freely and generously. So I want to tell you just one more story that I learned this week from our oh-so-cowardly lion, Mike Pryor. If you don't know him, Mike Pryor was our cowardly lion. He told me this amazing story this week. A lot of you may know him because he's in musical theater often, but for years and years and years, he only sang in choirs. He sang in big ensembles. Until one day, in a choir rehearsal, the alto sitting next to him said, I'm auditioning for musical theater in Claremore. I'm really excited. And he said, oh, wow, that's amazing. I've always wanted to do that, but I'm not sure I'd be good at it. And, oh, it's a little scary. And that was it. That was the end of the conversation. And she started the rehearsals with the theater company. And then just a week before the show was going to go on, she came to rehearsal and she said, Mike, hey, the leading man who's playing opposite me can't be in the show. So, hey, you want to try it? I don't think Mike is in the sanctuary anymore, but there he is, Mike. I don't know how afraid you were or how fast you started breathing or how high your blood pressure shot up. I can only imagine how terrifying it was, yet what a big, open invitation that was to something that you felt was good and true inside of you. And the friend was very smart, and she kind of lowered the risk level by saying that she would take care of him. She'd kind of attach him to her, and just put him where he needed to be on stage during the show, and that really there'd be no expectations because people knew he hadn't rehearsed a lot in the production. And Mike said yes. Mike said yes, and ever since then, musical theater has been the biggest, most fulfilling, most rewarding part of his life because he risked, and he discovered something about himself that was needed to be expressed that never would have been. Oh, I forgot one thing he says. He says at the end, I love what he told me, I did Hello Dolly on a basketball court, and I've been in theater ever since. I'm going to come back up here even though I've got these amazing shoes on. So this is why we're calling this summer the Summer of Living Dangerously, if you saw it on the marquee outside, and why we're going to encourage all of you this summer to take healthy risks, to be braver than usual, all the way in June, July, and August. And we've chosen themes for this summer. June's theme is courage, July's theme is conflict, and August's theme is commitment. Because the world needs your gifts. And the yellow brick road to self-discovery and self-actualization is full of forests filled with flying monkeys and wicked witches, even if they're just those negative, endlessly repeating tapes in our heads, undermining voices that tell us we can't do it, it's too late, we'll never succeed, it's already over. Those are all lies that try to trick us into giving up or thinking there's no point, or everything is already lost. But it's not true, because love is to fear what light is to darkness. Dorothy is the one who teaches that lesson, so we're going to have to talk about Dorothy before I close. If you notice, if you watch it again this week, every time Dorothy is brave, it's because she loves. She risks running away because she loves Toto. She wants to protect Toto from Miss Gulch. She risks facing off with a lion because the lion is chasing after Toto. And she risks facing off with the Wicked Witch because the Wicked Witch is trying to kill the scarecrow with fire. That's when she throws the bucket of water. Love saves everybody's life in the movie. And the root of the word courage, you probably already know, is cœur in French, which is heart. Courage comes from the heart, and only love makes us truly courageous. So I want to charge you, our high school graduates, this summer and this year, to love liberally, to dare greatly, to be brave, to expect to fail, to pay attention when you do, because you can learn a lot when you're dusting yourself off and getting ready to rise up and risk again. Because the world needs you to be fully you. And all of us, you and all of us, we can choose courage or we can choose comfort. But I hope you'll all choose courage. Amen.
We sing our thanks and praise, for all life is a gift, which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
We are your church, and we are proud to be your church, or at least a church that's having a positive impact on your life. I am personally blessed to be your minister, or at least a minister who you're allowing to speak into your life. I hope you'll support our ministry and share your love beyond belief by texting LOVE-BB to 41444 or go to our website. But you can just text LOVE-BB to 41444 and make your gift. It's wonderful. Thank you. Be blessed and be a blessing.